Hi everyone, it's me, Arielle, and it's Wednesday Warriors. Today I'm going to be responding to the question, how do I come to terms with the fact that I have an eating disorder? I know rationally that I have a problem, but until I am completely willing to accept that, I am not sure that I can even think seriously about recovery. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about accepting that you have a problem and what to do next and how to go from there. You don't have to classify it as something in particular. You don't have to have a diagnosis to have a problem, and I think a lot of people get so hung up on criteria and so hung up on having an actual doctor or psychologist or psychiatrist diagnose them, and they feel that they don't have a real eating disorder unless someone does that. But that's not true. You just have to ask yourself a couple of questions. You just want to ask yourself these things. Are you unhappy? Do you want to be better than you are? Do you need to be healthier, whether mentally, physically, or otherwise? Are the issues or anxieties you have interfering in your everyday life? And if you answered yes to any of those things, then something is wrong, and perhaps it is an eating disorder. And regardless of all of the different diagnoses you could have, or regardless of all the different behaviors that you encounter, you have a problem because you are not happy, you're not right with yourself, you're not healthy, you want something more. You can also look up eating disorder surveys or questionnaires on eating disorder recovery websites. They have things that are sort of in survey fashion, and it asks you some questions about your behaviors and about your feelings. And based on the answers that you can give to those, perhaps it would help you accept that you do in fact have an eating disorder, if that's the case. I actually printed one of those questionnaires from Something Fishy, and I'm going to read a few of the questions and see if they resonate with you, and maybe you would find that helpful in accepting that you really do have a problem. I'm not going to read all of the questions because there are quite a lot, but you can go to somethingfishy.org and you can look up questionnaire, or just type in, do I have an eating disorder, and it'll come up. One of the questions is, do you think you are not good enough, stupid, and or worthless, or that people are always judging you in a negative way? Do you think your life would be better and or people would like you more if you were thin or thinner? Do you find yourself often comparing your appearance and weight to others, strangers and or models and actors, and wishing to be as nice looking or as thin as they are? As you can see, these questions are not necessarily questions about behaviors, about weights, about if you meet a certain criteria. These are about feelings and about thoughts that you have in your own mind, and they are just as relevant as numbers are. Do you feel as though you have a conscience or voice that tells you negative things about yourself, convinces you that you do not deserve to eat and or to be happy, or that tells you that you are or deserve to be fat and ugly? Are you depressed, suicidal, stressed out, and or fatigued, and or do you suffer from anxiety or panic attacks, mood swings, rage, and or insomnia? Do you eat, self-starve, or restrict, binge and or purge and or compulsively exercise when you are feeling lonely, badly about yourself or about a situation, or when you are feeling emotional pressures? Now this is going into some more behaviors, into some things that people do on a regular basis. And these are very important as well, but they all do go back to thoughts and feelings. While eating, self-starving, or binging and or purging, do you feel comforted, relieved, like emotional pressures have been lifted, or like you are in more control? Do you typically feel guilty after a binge or after any snack or meal, and like you have almost instantly gained weight, like you are a failure and or like you have sabotaged yourself? Do you use self-starvation, purging, diet pills, laxatives, diuretics, and or obsessive exercise as a way to attempt to lose weight? Do you abuse alcohol, drugs, or prescription medication, and or practice in self-hurting behaviors such as cutting? Do you weigh yourself often, and does the number on the scale dictate your mood and or self-worth for the day? And or do you find you are continuously trying to get that number lower? These are just, as I said, some questions that you can ask yourself to help you accept that you have an eating disorder. You do not have to answer yes to every question in order to tell yourself and know that you have an eating disorder. You can answer yes to one of these things and still have a problem. You can't compare your experience to the experiences of others that you have read or heard about or listened to. Just a couple more questions before I go on. Do you set weight goals for yourself only to find when you reach it that you want to lose more? Do you do any of the following? Hide or steal food, laxatives, or diet pills, eat or exercise secretively, avoid eating in public or around others, wear clothes that hide your weight, or make excuses like "I don't feel well" to avoid meals? Would you worry about a friend or family member that came to you with similar weight loss coping methods? And I think that is a really good question, because I think much of the time, things that we have done or things that we do, we know we would be very, very concerned if a friend or a family member came to us and told us the same things. So you need to kind of turn that around onto yourself. Do you lie about your eating behaviors? Hide them from others at all costs? Or would you lie or steal to see they could continue? Do you use self-injury, cutting yourself, burning yourself, pulling out your own hair as a way to cope with things? I'm just going to stop with the questions there, but that was a fair amount of questions for you out there. If you are having trouble accepting that you have an eating disorder, if you feel like you have this little voice inside of you that says, "I can't have an eating disorder, I don't think I have one, maybe I don't have one," these questions should clinch it for you. If any one of these questions has a yes answer to it and resonates with you, you have some sort of problem, and even if you're lacking diagnosis, it doesn't mean that you can't get help. And hopefully once you can accept that you do have a problem, you can just make that next move to get the help that you need. And that's often the hardest part. Once you've accepted that there is something amiss, you can move forward. Once you let yourself in on the secret that there is some sort of problem here, a problem has a solution. Accepting that you have a problem is important. Accepting that you have an eating disorder is important, because you can't rely on yourself to want to ask for help if you don't recognize that there's a problem. But at the same time, you don't want to get hung up on diagnosis and criteria and classifications and definitions and all those sorts of things. Learn what your issues are and go from there. I know that an eating disorder can be scary, especially in the initial stages when you're realizing that you do have a serious problem and that you do need some sort of help in order to get over it. If you know rationally, as you say, that you have a problem, what are the things that make you think so? Write them down, get them out in a journal, read over them, and understand that until you accept these things and are willing to move on and get help, you're not going to feel better or get better. If you know somewhere inside of yourself that something is wrong and that you may have an eating disorder, even if you can't bring yourself to say, "Yes, I have an eating disorder," then something's amiss. You know, if you have that gut feeling that something isn't right, and if you know that something isn't right, you can do something about it. Remember that you're not alone. Remember that eating disorders are not shameful, and that's a big one. They're nothing to be ashamed of. Everyone has his or her problems and must face them. Some people have drug addictions, some have alcoholism, some have anxiety, some have post-traumatic stress disorder, some have family issues, some have marital issues, some have depression, and some have a few of those things mixed together here and there. But there are any number of problems that people have to deal with in this world, and an eating disorder is just another one of those. You can get through it, and you can accept it. The sooner you accept it, the sooner you can do something about it. And I hope that if you are watching this, whoever sent in this question, that you will learn to accept it, and that you will do something about it, because you are worth it. You are worth recovery. You are worth living a life without this stupid pain. Have a good week, guys.